And ultimately, if your self-image isn't strong, it will destroy you. And I want to tell you guys a quick story about how my self-image while I was in university really impacted me tremendously. My new self-image that I was forming was maybe I wasn't smart enough. Maybe I couldn't crack it. Other people around me actually saw me as like the most confident, the smartest, very intelligent. But meanwhile, I was really struggling just to keep my head above water. Your algorithm today actually controls you. If I want to destroy your potential without attacking your talent or your intelligence or any of your physical traits, I would focus on attacking your self-image, because your self-image is what shapes you into the person that you ultimately become in your life. And as a high performer, this is a very important topic. Your self-image will be how you view yourself into the world. It will determine the opportunities that you pursue or go after. And ultimately, if your self-image isn't strong, it will destroy you. And the most important part is your self-image will give you evidence on the type of person that you're becoming. And the sad reality is, for a lot of people, their self-image is quietly destroying them. Before we start this video, we have to define what self-image is. And essentially, your self-image is how you view yourself in the world. It's essentially the story that you tell yourself on a day-to-day basis. And the crazy part is, whether you realize it or not, your self-image will ultimately shape the life that you will continue to live. After looking into some of the data about self-image, it's typically divided amongst different pillars. So you have your physical self, like how you view your body. Right now I'm at the gym, so I'm working on my physical self-image. You have the psychological, so how do you interpret things within your mind? How do you navigate certain challenges? What are your personality traits? Are you confident? Are you arrogant? You have the intellectual side of your self-image, so how intelligent do you think you are? And then you have the social side of your self-image, so are you likable? Do you have friends? Do you have social supports? And then finally, the moral code to your self-image. So do you have morals, ethics, values, things that you believe? And these all shape your self-image. And then finally, you have the sexual side of your self-image. So how do you view yourself in terms of attraction, relationships, and ultimately desirability? Now, the scary thing about self-image and looking at these pillars is most people never took the time to actually analyze what that means for them. So they've been guessing and doing a lot of guesswork. And when your self-image is destroyed, you're going to look for evidence to basically prove yourself right in the process. So this was something that was really harming me at the time. And with our self-image, you have to understand that ultimately it can become like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So again, if you believe that your self-image is someone who's out of shape, who doesn't take care of their health, who is lazy, you're going to find evidence to do that. And then that's how you're going to perceive yourself in the mirror. And a perfect example of this is if any of you have ever read the book Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. And ultimately, it's all about self-image and how you view yourself. Basically, he was a plastic surgeon. And what he would do is he would do these incisions and cuts on people's faces, give them nose jobs, change their cheek structure, and a whole bunch of other things. And he realized even after the surgery, even after he gave his patients what they exactly wanted, they still viewed themselves in a way that was negative. They still viewed themselves in that old light, even though he made the changes. And he realized that it wasn't so much about the changes. It was a self-image that they held internally. That was the ultimate driver. So that's why it can be very dangerous, because if you never took the time to really analyze where you lie across the multiple domains of self-image, if you never took the time to understand, okay, how do I view myself sexually? How do I view myself in terms of moral obligations? What are my values? How do I view myself physically? You're probably reinforcing things over and over again. And even now within the society that we live in with the algorithm and social media, it's very easy to start to believe things about your identity and your self-image. I talked about this before, but your algorithm today actually controls you. And if you're constantly watching content like this to level up and become the best version of yourself, you're reinforcing a positive self-image. However, there's another side of the internet where they're not talking about these things. They're promoting things that aren't beneficial to their long-term goals and objectives. And therefore, they're probably reinforcing that same negative self-image. And I want to recount a quick story of when I was in university and I was navigating through my own self-image journey. Quick backstory. When I was in high school, I did pretty well academically. And when I was going to university, I thought it was going to be basically the same exact process. Pretty smooth sailing. I know I probably would have to work a little bit harder, but when I got to university, especially my first year, I realized it was a complete 180 from what I was used to. The workload was a lot tougher. There was late nights. There was early mornings. I remember at one point, I was going to bed at 12 and I was waking up at 4 just to do my work. I was grinding around the clock. It was nonstop. And the worst part is I actually wasn't getting the grades that I hoped. I wasn't succeeding in the way that I knew that it was possible for myself. And the most dangerous part is I started to reinforce a negative self-image. I started to think like maybe I wasn't that guy anymore. Maybe I didn't have the academic capabilities that I once had back in high school. And it really started to weigh on me because every single time I got back an exam and it wasn't the grade I hoped for, I was just reinforcing that self-image. I like, yeah, maybe I'm just not capable. Maybe I am not able to cut it. And the messed up part about my self-image and the thing that used to drive me insane was people around me used to think I was like some genius. I had everything figured out. University was so easy for me. But internally I was struggling and it was hard to really like speak up about it because I'm like, damn, man, like I'm navigating through this. Everybody thinks I have it all figured out. I don't have it all figured out. And it just really just kept on dawning on me. So you might ask the question, like, how did you change your self-image? And honestly, the first thing to do when you're trying to navigate and change your self-image is that it starts with evidence. Evidence is going to be the key foundation of who you are. For example, when you look in the mirror and you see your physical self-image, you have to understand that that is pure evidence of whatever you're reinforcing. So if you're looking in the mirror and you're seeing someone who's strong, who's powerful, who looks good, you're going to reinforce that self-image. But on the contrary, if you don't like what you see, you're also going to reinforce that self-image. So when it came to my academics in school, one of the things I had to learn very quickly was that I had to find evidence very quickly that I was that student, that could do well and excel well, especially at the university level. And I remember this vividly. It started off with this psychology assignment. It was 2% of our grade. And I remember I got like a 2 out of 2 on it, which was 100%. And I had to constantly reinforce that self-image because then I reminded myself, wait, I am capable of doing really well in university. And even though it was small, even though it wasn't nothing major towards my overall grade, that was a constant evidence that I needed in that reminder. And I actually used to go back to that grade over and over again, continue to visualize it, continue to read over it, because I was reminding myself that I was capable of getting strong grades. And then long and behold, as I started to navigate that process, the evidence sort of became clear. And I started to reinforce that I was that person. So, and then when it came to university, especially from all my assignments and quizzes, I was getting high 90s, 100% over and over and over again. And it got to the point where if I didn't get a strong mark, like something internally felt wrong because I rebuilt my self-image in a way that I was somebody who gets good grades again. And personally, that's the best part of the self-image, because you can change your self-image today. If you don't like one of the pillars of your self-image, you can continuously work on it. But the first thing, it has to start with evidence. You have to come up with evidence that it is possible. So for example, when I look at myself in the mirror for my physical self-image, I'm seeing the vasculature in my arms. I'm seeing the abdominal muscles showing. So that's giving me the confidence that, hey, my self-image is being built. I'm seeing progress, right? Like when I step on that scale and I see the weight increase, because I'm currently in a phase where I'm putting on more size and weight, this is reinforcing my self-image that I'm somebody who's capable of making these changes. Another thing I did to change my self-image, especially when I was in university, was I started to use I am statements. So you'll see oftentimes people do these I am statements, and these are very powerful because you're reinforcing the identity and the person that you want to be. So for example, one of the I am statements was, I am somebody who's capable of getting high grades in my academics. I am somebody who shows up on time to classes. I am someone who excels in all their courses. And even during my exam season, I used to write this out on a journal. I literally still had the journal to this day of, I am so grateful for achieving this mark on my exam. I am so grateful for the confidence and consistency. I'm so grateful that I'm a well-rounded university student. And these were things that I was writing on a consistent basis. And over time, the evidence shown, not only was I doing well academically, I was also doing things within my extracurriculars. I was managing my workload across multiple jobs. And ultimately, I wasn't drowning in work. And funny enough, as my workload started to increase, I created more systems, a better self-image, and ultimately, like, I was able to handle it, and it felt like the workload was actually less. And the same thing can be with you. Like, if you take one of those pillars that I mentioned earlier in the video, and if you start making I am statements about this, like, I am someone who's disciplined, I am someone who's lean, I am someone who's consistent, I am someone who's physically attractive, I am someone who's desirable, I am a good person, I have good morals, whatever I am statement you need to work on, that's the first foundational step that you can take forward to start changing your self-image into something positive. Even today, as I speak, like, I have Notion documents where I write out the person that I'm envisioning, the person that I'm stepping into. So I am someone who's making this much money a month. I am someone who's living in this area, driving this car, walking down these spaces, because my self-image is already primed and is already working towards the person I want to be. And the coolest part about the self-image, especially when you start to internalize these things, is you're going to find evidence for these things. All you need is evidence. So if you're struggling with fitness, for example, right? This is like the most, I don't want to say basic transformation, but it's the most apparent transformation. And you make a transformation, seeing your body change from going from one thing to another thing. That's the first step of evidence that you'll need and you'll use to propel you forward. Now you understand what that transformation looks like, and you already have evidence to back it up. And it's almost like this domino effect, because like I said before, I've got the transformation while I was in school. I got the transformation with the systems. I've got the transformation throughout different jobs. I'm in the process of getting that transformation with fitness. I'm in the process of getting that transformation with content. And it becomes like this fun little domino game where you're just like, okay, what other transformation I want to make? And you're constantly evolving and stepping into the person that you want to become. But remember, it all comes back to self-image. How do you view yourself? How do you view yourself? How do you step into spaces? And as a high performer, you need to have this North Star. You need to have a direction where you're aiming, right? There's a great book called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. And he basically says that if you don't really have a plan in life, you're essentially a drifter. And basically what that means is you're wandering aimlessly. You have no direction. You don't know where you want to go. And the scariest thing about people who are drifters is that if you don't have a dream, you'll be a resource in someone else's dream. You're going to help someone else build their dream. And that's the sad reality that so many people face. But as a high performer, I'm going to ensure that you have the systems and the accountability to make that not your reality. And self-image is something I constantly reinforce. Another very positive thing that you can do is visualization. So for me personally, I love meditating. Meditating is one of like my internal pieces. And one of the best things you can do through your meditations is actually visualize. Visualize the version, the I am version that you're stepping into. Visualize the dream physique, the dream lifestyle, how you're going to help people, how you're going to make transformations. And that's how you're stepping into the I am self. And that's how you'll start to create a positive self-image, something that you'll be proud of on a consistent basis. And one of the best feelings, especially as a high performer, is when you look at yourself in the mirror and you're proud of what you're seeing. I I generally feel very sad for a lot of people who constantly look in the mirror and they're not proud of who they are. They see somebody who they're not proud of. They see somebody who they know if they locked in, they can do amazing things in their life, but they don't have the evidence to make that possible. But I'm telling you, once you start to work on your self-image, once you start to visualize the person you want to become, once you start to identify with the I am statements towards the person you're working towards, it will happen. Time will catch up with you, right? I'm not saying you don't have to do the work, because of course you have to do the work, but the first thing is you have to believe, right? This is why I always say, always believe that you will achieve. The belief comes first, and then the action will follow suit. And the more you believe is the more you'll be able to stick through things for the long term. I think about myself right now, like currently I'm at the gym, and honestly, I was talking to a guy, I was in the sauna the other day, and he asked me like, oh, how many times a week do you come to the gym? I said, oh, I'm at a 5-day-a-week split. And he kind of like stopped me and he's like, you come to the gym 5 days a week? Like I could never. And the interesting thing was like, I didn't really think much of it. It's been sort of like a routine that's been ingrained with me for quite some time now. However, what I am realizing is like, I've always associated myself with being an athlete. I am an athlete. So it makes sense as an athlete to train in the gym, to spend time on my body, to spend time working on my craft. It's the same thing with some of you. Like some of you probably do things on a consistent basis that like other people would find pretty incredible, right? But if you associate yourself with these I am statements, your self-image will follow suit. And this feels normal. Like it's normal to me to go to the gym 5 days a week. In fact, on the days that I miss the gym, for example, yesterday I was supposed to go to the gym. I get 2 rest days a week. So I just had to move a rest day. Move a rest day to another day. And it felt really weird not going to the gym because a part of my self-image is I'm an athlete. I'm someone who goes to the gym. So I have to move my body every single day. And honestly, if more people understood this, we wouldn't have so many people not reaching for their goals, not aspiring for a bigger life, not working towards greatness. But as you, as a high performer, especially as you're watching this video like this, like for you, it's only a matter of time. I want you to keep reinforcing a positive self-image that you're working towards. I want you to keep visualizing the person that you want to become on a consistent basis, and it's going to happen. So yeah, that's essentially it for today's video, guys. I hope you all enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're interested in some one-on-one coaching where we can work through your self-image, where we can build out a roadmap and really start to implement systems and accountability to make your self-image inevitable and a reality, check out the link in my description and book a call, and I can see if you're a good fit for the program. And then finally, for those of you who are interested in being part of a high-performance community, this will surround you among like-minded individuals working towards their goals, talking about these concepts much more in depth. I have a community waitlist sign-up sheet, so check that out in the description as well. But you know what I always say, make sure to always believe that you will achieve. My name is Miles, aka Mr. High Performance, and I will see you, yes you, in the next video. Let's go. Woo!